I'll just let you take it from here, Robyn.
Thanks, Val. Yeah, glad to be together again. Hi, everybody. I am Robyn Houston-Bean. I'm the founder of the Summer Rise Foundation. We provide peer grief support to people bereaved due to substance use related causes. And we do that by providing, right now we have 45 meetings in person or virtually for people. Then we also do in-person events and activities so people can get together in community outside of the groups. And this project has been amazing to be able to be a part of, talking about our awe and wonder because it comes up so often in our grief groups. And once one person starts talking about it, another person opens up and starts talking about what's happened to them. And it's kind of like a contagion through the group. You just get these like moments that people just want to share. And then they might not have been able to share it with anybody else outside of the group. So it's a really safe place to do that. And I've been really appreciative to Val to have us be able to talk about it outside of the groups. And it's really a weird thing today because Dr. Annie Brewster is here as our guest, Val. I am so excited for that. And Annie is actually the person that brought us together. That's why Val and I know each other because of a book that Val was doing a while ago, long before this book. And I had met Annie due to her opioid storytelling project, and she put the two of us together. And I just think that's amazing that now here we are going to be talking to Annie today. So, Annie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you both for having me. And I love that little I don't know, kind of magical thing right there that we were all connected, the interconnections we have. So yeah, I do you want me to say more about me or who I am, or do you want yeah, so I'm
Absolutely, because you started the
I
the
did.
whole
I
Health Story
did.
Collaborative
Yeah.
project. And
So yeah, so I appreciate that. So I'll just be brief on that because I get sick of talking about myself. But I am a physician. I'm practicing internal medicine still, and then my real passion and at least 75% of my time is spent running a nonprofit called Health Story Collaborative. That is where I met these two wonderful people through that work, and it is dedicated to using storytelling as a therapeutic tool, really trying to bring narrative and storytelling into the healthcare arena where you'd think it would be there, but the system is so strained that sometimes there's not enough of that going on. But really grounded in research on the health benefits of storytelling and how we all, when we're navigating challenges, illness, trauma, loss, can play an active role, in fact, in deciding how we're going to make sense of the experience and the story we're going to tell about it going forward. And to me, that's really empowering. And that's sort of the crux of the work that yes, we have hard things happen, but that it's our story to tell. And so it's about helping people sort of navigate challenging life events and integrate those into their self story. And we do all sorts of programming, but I'll stop there. So on
well,
that.
I'm going to add something. You are the
Okay.
author of a very fantastic book about the healing power of stories. It's called The Healing Power of Storytelling, right?
Imagine that, right? Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
very
Um,
inspiring.
I- yeah, and I think the subtitle is using personal narrative to navigate illness, trauma, and loss. So it's yeah, I think a lot of it is my story in that book, and then about a third of it is really the research. And there's a lot of good research on why telling our stories is good for us and listening to other people's stories individually and collectively. That's very healing. And then my favorite part of the book is the one that profiles all these amazing people, and Robyn's in there. Well, we talk about the opioid project. I'm pretty sure you come up directly. Anyway, so yeah, it's my honor and privilege to do that work. I really love it.
We all love storytelling and see the healing power of it. And we're just doing a take on awe and wonder with stories tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes me really want to know, Annie, if you have a story for us tonight.
I do. It's interesting thinking about it. I have so many small moments that sort of make up a bigger story or that tap into that. To try to come up with one story was hard, but
Yeah.
I have some. So I'm going to tell you multiple. multiple stories, if that's okay, but they're all
That's
kind of
good.
short. Yeah, because I do think you already touched on it, Val, but so much of it is sort of what those moments that cause us to that bring us into the present, that sort of bring
Yeah.
us out of ourselves, I think, and sort of
That's right.
transcend ourselves so that we can let go of some of that, whatever we're holding on to, and actually appreciate the bigger world around us, which
Right.
awe and wonder, and really be present in those moments. So I think all of my stories have that thread in them, and that's to me like I think everyone would probably have a slightly different definition of what is awe or what is
Yeah.
wonder.
Well, many people see it as a series of different kinds of
Yeah, yeah,
moments. So
yeah,
it's usually not one big, major, one and only, one and done.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, so I'll
often a
yeah.
series. In fact, those are most neuroscience is showing us that it's the smaller moments that are just as important. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. So I'll start with one just that was, when I was in high school, I think I had a moment. So I had a wonderful childhood in so many ways, but there was definitely some stress and trauma. My parents had a very terrible divorce. I had a very rocky adolescence with lots of challenges. And I was like straddling in high school this duality of being like completely overachieving on the one hand and like succeeding in school and succeeding in athletics and like really feeling like so susceptible to wanting to make other people happy. And I think it was about like wanting to be enough, right? And I didn't feel that. So like really that overachieving part. And then the other flip side was like kind of like off the rails a bit with like partying. And so I was like doing these two different extremes and I was kind of fragmented. And um, when I was in sophomore year, I was like riding the bus home from like a field hockey game, I think, and we were sharing the bus with the soccer team. And two boys who were the year ahead of me, who I knew but didn't know well, said, hey, you want to go to see the Grateful Dead with us to a concert? And I had heard one song that they played, but I didn't know more than that. Anyway, my poor mother, I said, sure. And I went to Worcester and I called her like from a payphone. It was back then with payphones on the like Worcester Coliseum. I'm at a concert, in Worcester. Anyway, the point of this is, even though there is like, believe me, I went very deep into the Grateful Dead. I did for some years of my life. And there is definitely a dark side to that life. There is a lot of problems and a lot of substance use disorder and a lot that's wrong. But there was that moment that night that I like tapped into something so that I would say was awe and wonder of like, the music and the people and the connection that I felt. Like I can't even really put it into words. It was like I felt so free in a way that I
Mm.
hadn't. And I felt this sense of community, even though I didn't know all these people that were there all for this unified purpose of hearing the music. And just to like let go into the music and all of that sort of like all of those like not feeling like enough or feeling super driven or feeling like I needed to like numb out and turn it off, all the things that were driving sort of the pain that like I
Mm.
just felt in that moment so free and like so in myself at the same time, like grounded and like, I mean, not, it sounds silly now, but I was like, I have like found my people and I feel understood
Mhm.
and I feel seen and of course that doesn't hold. And as I said, there is a dark side, but there was something really magical even as that time went on. Because I did, I of course finished high school and interestingly, like I did then like go to college at Stanford University, and I left after one quarter and I went and I followed the Grateful Dead around for like a year and a half straight, and that's all I did.
Mm.
And that sounds really crazy, um, but it helped me find myself so much. And when I went back to college, it was because I wanted to, and nobody was telling me that I should.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, it was, but that first moment when I first like, was so overcome by like feeling like I could breathe, like I can relax and So that was the one moment that came to mind, which I know,
Powerful.
yeah, it was just, I think again, it was just like getting out of my own head and like, but there was a sense of feeling connected and those beautiful moments of feeling in community, which, doesn't always last. It can be a transient feeling. It can be a lasting feeling, but I just felt so like I could breathe, I think is the
Hmm.
way I would say it. So that was one. And then the other moments I thought of, it's really, again, I kept thinking of these moments I've had in nature, um, or just where, those moments where everything sort of seems to stop for a second and feel like perfection and then it's
Hmm.
transient. But I think part of the beauty and the power is the transience,
Yeah.
because it's both. But so, like, one moment that came to mind is when I was, I don't know, 22 and I was in India studying for a little while and then traveling. And I ended up in Ladakh, which is a Tibetan Buddhist or like Tibetan. It's a very Buddhist country. It's in India, but I had been studying some Tibetan Buddhism. Anyway, so I was there, and there was, Ladakh is it's north of Kashmir. It's very north. It's more traveled now. Then it was like not. It's very hard to get there. It's like very high elevation. You have to go over a lot of high mountain passes. So there was one day I remember just walking like to this monastery. I was with two other people and it's like the starkest landscape of like dry earth. You're up at like above 12,000 feet, blue sky and
Mm.
like so strong sun that you feel like you're going to find like bones lying around. It's that sort of intensity or like, and like a black bird will fly by and it's so sharp against like
Right.
the blue sky and the red earth and then the mountains in the background. And then we walked the whole day and we came to this Tibetan monastery and, that too was like, they're usually like whitewashed and then the windows are like lined in black and red. And then going in, and it was like walking through these like dungeon little hallways because it's very like small and dark and these little windows. And then going into this central, um, I guess, religious space. I don't know what you would call it, where all the monks were lined up. Um, and chanting and doing their chants. And like the light was like dark because it was like almost felt like we were underground, but there were windows with this like bright sunshine. Like I remember like the shaft of sunlight coming in,
Mm.
like I was sitting there on these mats after that, and we were given like this Tibetan tea, which is like, it's really made from like yak butter. It's like raunchy, but like it's strong in taste. And like I can almost like smell it. And then like the sun coming through the window and like seeing the
Mm.
dust particles in the sunlight, like I remember them so starkly and hearing the monks chanting and just and like the bells that they would ring and the incense burning, like that moment is etched in my mind of one where like I especially remember that sort of one ray of sun coming in and it was like with the dust particles.
Mm.
Anyway, one of those moments where like it's just perfect and you're just like, this is perfect.
Mm.
And I want to stop time and capture it, but of course you
Mm.
can't. But where everything is just feels as it should be and just so beautiful. And just like with the chanting, it was just that was just a moment that came to mind
Wow.
of yeah, just feeling like everything was as it should be. And I felt so good. So, you know, there are many moments like that. There's another one sort of on that in that same journey where I went on a similar hike um, in a very high altitude. I love high altitude. And it was
Mm.
with a monk that I had met down in Kathmandu when I was in Nepal, and he was there. And just this like really tender time with him going to visit his family and like hiking up the hill. And like we were like holding hands, but it was like children. It was like so pure. There was nothing. He was a monk, I was his friend. There was just something so pure and like joyful and
Mm.
uncomplicated,
Mm.
perfect about that day. Or then many moments in nature uh, here, just like when I've been in the woods or sitting, like I remember one moment just sitting on a big boulder in the woods, the sun again coming through like the dappled light in the trees and like smelling the earth and hearing the bird. Again, those moments it just sort of seems so stark where all the senses seem intensified and then it's gone. But those to me are those are wondrous moments where you realize you sort of don't necessarily articulate it, but find your sense of place in this
Hmm.
bigger world, and it just all feels just right in that second. So those are the ones, and gosh, I could go on. I had lots like that, but that's sort of, I think, the thread
Hmm.
that, and there's something I think about, as I said, about the transience that makes it magical, or that like in those moments where you feel so small, there's the flip side of that, right, can be really scary if you think about the size of the universe and all these questions we that I sometimes get freaked out thinking about. But they kind of go together, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
like there's magical moments and then those like, the I don't know, that you can't have one without the other.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And then the one other one that I thought of, which was really cool. It's funny, I'm close with my mom, very close. Um, we had, in adolescence, we had a rocky time, but we talk every day. We're always very close. But when I was, kind of during that time so the opposite of the wonder, when you get into the dark side of the like Grateful Dead life, which there are some dark moments. There was one moment where, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like I was 19 or something, and I was really sad. I'd had like a bad interaction with some guy that night, and I was like in a hotel room because I was like, on Grateful Dead tour, and I was in the
Oh, no.
shower and I was like crying to myself. I was alone, but I was crying. And in that moment, I don't think I was talking out loud. I think I was just talking in my head. I was back. I want to be with my mom. I just want a cup of hot chocolate. I just wanted comfort. And I was like saying, I want to be with my mom. And then the next morning or the next day, of course, this was before cell phone. So I'm trying to think about how this worked because it wasn't like we could easily call each other. I was in California at the
Yeah.
time. She was in Boston, but we spoke the next day or a few days after, or I think it was the next day because she said to me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." Why? And she's like, "I sat bolt upright in my bed last night and I
Oh,
heard you calling my name.
oh, wow.
I just want to make sure you're okay." And at that point, I was like, "I'm fine." And I didn't tell her till years later. And like the times corresponded, like for her, it had been like 3 a.m. and it had been like midnight my time, when I was in California. And like she heard me and she sat up in bed and woke up. And, that connection. I believe in that. Like, I don't know how to articulate that. People think that's crazy. But I think there's some like that's to me really like magical, like that the people that we're really connected to really like there's more to that than we understand. Um, and I think that was a moment that strikes me as wondrous and full of awe because, she really did hear me. And I needed her. And I literally was saying, I just want my mom. I just want my mom. So that's one.
My gosh.
Mhm.
Annie, did you know? I just wanted you to know that you hit all
Mhm.
the checklists that the neuroscience folks say. And just this is for everybody to know, Annie, you were the perfect describer of there's six main factors of an awe moment that are consistent with the legit awe moments. Now, I'm joking when I say legit because it is very personal, but these are the factors. One is it feels like time stops when
Mhm.
you have these, what you were describing, that kind of, that pause, that stop where everything seemed to stand still.
Yeah.
Okay, that it's an alteration in our sense of time is number one. A sense of vastness,
Hmm.
something just enormous, vast that you said could be scary, but it's also really liberating.
Yes. Yeah.
Vastness is huge part of it. A sense of belonging, a sense of oneness with everything
Mhm.
is huge part of it. And the small self, the sense of being one part of something so much bigger.
Mm.
These are like classic
Mhm.
awe elements of a real awe experience that you have described so beautifully. And I just want to thank you because you really did describe it so well. My senses were like, I want
Mhm.
more, I want more.
And I think that, having those moments and appreciating them gives me a sense of, I don't know, just if you can believe in those moments, believe in sort of the magic and not lose
Yeah.
sight of it, I think that that makes me feel comforted. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
And it's beautiful how it's carried all these years later. You can still feel what you felt right back then. That's how powerful these are, that it's
Yeah.
not fleeting and you forget about it. You might forget about it for a while, but then it comes back to the forefront of your mind.
Yep.
We're talking about awe and wonder. And I love listening to people tell their stories because it sometimes triggers one back to me. And I think
Yeah.
that's so powerful. And I'm like, oh, gosh, I had a moment that was similar to that I hadn't thought about in a long time. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was in that place with you, like Val just said. I could feel that sun and I could
Mm.
feel the dustiness of the area and everything like that. Powerful stories, Annie. Really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's like those senses coming alive is a huge part of it for me
Mhm.
because that is sort of about like almost that the time stops, but they really feel like they're like sharper or
Mm.
in those moments when you really like notice, it's like, everything seems sharper. What you see,
Hmm.
what you smell, what at least for me, when people are in a really dark place or feeling down, like I think that's more what I mean about like feeling comforted. Is like it's hard always to remember that there is that possibility for magic. And I think there has to be some sort of openness to
Yeah.
magical moments, right? So anyway, I think it's great, this project, because I think just to remind people that there is this magic out there and that we just have to open up ourselves up to it and notice it, and it's there, and it can really help people, I think, all of us come out of ourselves a little bit and feel more connected to the bigger
It
whole.
sounds like that Grateful Dead experience also made you more open. It
Definitely.
opened you
Yeah.
up and it kept you open. And I there's a lot of research too that openness of the big five factor personality, the famous five
Yeah.
personality
The big
traits,
five. Yep.
openness is the most likely part of us to open us to awe. Like
Yeah.
if you want more awe, I mean, work on opening, but it sounds like the Grateful Dead did a lot for you to start opening you, and it's like you took off from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had some of that before. It's funny. I was the kid who was like, Mom, can we please go to church? Please. Not because I wasn't raised religious. But I remember like watching Little House on the Prairie, and they got to go to church, and there was just something like so like the community and the togetherness and I don't know. Like I'm not necessarily one who follows an organized religion now, but I think that that was me yearning for that sort of deeper, even as a kid, yearning for
Mm.
that deeper thing. I don't know, that thing that's bigger than me, and I still would say that like so even as a kid, I think I wanted that. And the fact even though like yes, the Grateful Dead totally opened me in many ways, but I think the fact that I like was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with you guys. I had that openness already. Like maybe that was me just being reckless. But anyway, I think I had some openness to experience them, but it opened me more for sure. Um, and gave me a lot of experience with lots of different types of people. It was the biggest learning of my life in a lot of ways. Um, and helped me sort of figure out what was really important to me amidst a lot of, uh, I don't know, a lot that, I mean, a lot that's beautiful, but a lot that was not beautiful, and finding out who I was. But
Mhm.
I'm like rambling now. That's a tangent.
No, no, it sounds like a perfect thing to do when you're young,
Yeah,
especially.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It and it was like your own church.
In a
I've,
way. Yeah.
the church of the it took you on a
Yeah.
lot of it, you definitely had spiritual adventures.
Yeah, yeah. And then, I did spend that time in India. And so I did, sort of I loved the Buddhism and learning about the spiritual side of Buddhism and meeting some of I mean, those are some other like moments full of awe of meeting some of these ancient like Tibetan Rinpoches they're called or gurus who are just incredible. Yeah, so I would say I'm a very spiritual person, but I don't necessarily pin it down on one thing. But yeah, that's important to me. But I think that's is exactly this, just tapping into something bigger than ourselves and remembering that it's there. And yeah.
And you helped create some awe and wonder with the opioid project that I
Oh,
did with you.
nice.
And because for people who don't know, there's a part where you create art and then Annie interviews you and asks you to tell part of your person's story and who they were. And then it's combined. So the art gets shown, the story you get to listen to. They record you and put it together so beautifully, and then you can read a little snippet of it all at the same time. So you get all this sensory stuff, listening to the person talk about their person, looking at the art they made. And I can't tell you, I've listened and looked at a lot of them, and I just get this sense of just like I don't know. I don't know if I can get a word that explains it. I get chills when I listen to them, see them. It's you create something that somebody might not ever be able to experience out there. And it gives this shared experience of us together experience this person who's gone, who's not here anymore in this world. Their story lives on.
Mhm.
The person gets to be more than they died due to an overdose type of situation.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
is so powerful, and you must get that reaction from people that people give this type of thing when they go to the showing of these or
Yeah,
participating.
I really appreciate you saying that, Robin. I mean, I feel privileged to be invited into these stories and to hear about these individuals that are being honored in the project. And I think there's something magical that happens when you have people in a shared space that feel safe talking about things that are really vulnerable and raw, because I think that vulnerability really opens us up to each other. And so I think for me, it's been really beautiful to do that work. I mean, it's of course layered because I then spend a lot of time. I mean, we have group time in those events where there's really beautiful like just moments of connection that can happen, but also then individually recording the stories and then spending a lot of time with them after when I audio edit, where you really like dig into them and I get so like in that story. It's like yeah, like no one can talk to me when I'm got my earphones on
Mhm.
and everything. And it's such a privilege, but I really like feel for those people and I feel invited into their journeys. And so for me, it fills me up. And just seeing um, people who have been through really hard things continuing on um, and finding beauty, even when really hard things have happened and that pain doesn't necessarily go away, but there's anyway, there's a magic of connection in that project. It's been a privilege doing it. And Robin was like our in our very first ever group, and you set the bar.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be the guinea pig.
And for listeners here on the Health Story Collaborative website, you can also see the projects that go on with the opioid project.
Yep, you can hear
See,
all the stories.
so there's a lot about this that you two are talking about, but I think there's a lot of awe and wonder even in almost any shared experience that comes from the vulnerability that we're talking about. There
Yeah.
is I know we're talking about awe and wonder as a way of sharing stories, and that shared awe and wonder is contagious, but it's also enormously encouraging for people to see more awe and wonder in their own lives. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
stories have a way, if we tell our stories about our awe and wonder experiences, but even any story where you get down in there and the whole group is transported into that moment of that story, I still think
yeah.
something like that awe and wonder thing happens, where we're
Absolutely.
lifted out of ourselves.
Yep, yep, yep.
And that's the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so
Yeah,
wonderful that you use the word magic so freely because
I love that. Yeah, I love the word
oh,
magic. I think there is
what's wrong with
magic.
that?
Nothing. I love it. I do think there's magic.
Yeah.
Lots of it. Yeah.
Suspending belief for a little while. Did you ever have a friend who said, put it on the shelf? Like, you don't have to 100% believe it, but it's like, let's just let it be somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good to be able to do that, and that's part of having an open mind.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't have to believe everything hook, line, and sinker. You can still just let things kind of coexist out there somewhere, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know if like it's to me, it's almost like, is it about believing in something? Not necessarily. I think it's about surrendering something, maybe
Ah,
like opening up and allowing it to happen. It's not nec noticing, opening up your eyes to what is already happening around you. I don't know that in for me, it doesn't involve sort of, oh, I have to have a belief system. It's more like I have to shed all of the sometimes the barriers to seeing
hmm.
that, if we're all stressed out and running around and busy and like my day was today, crazy, um, then, you know, we have to slow down. I don't know. Do we always have to slow down to have those moments? I mean, I think we have to open ourselves up. I don't know what that means, but yeah. So it's it's happening around us. And yeah, synchronicity. I don't know. I
Hmm.
believe
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Just listening to your story, Annie, and that moment with your mom, I was taken back to a moment with Olivia, and it's really it's like it's almost like an opposite powerful moment that you had with your mom, and the evening before Nick died, he was going upstairs, and she said, something doesn't feel right.
Mm, mm,
Something doesn't feel right, and I said, no, he's fine. He's going up to bed. And she was having that feeling like your mom had, like something's wrong with my child. I need to reach out. And we always now talk about like she wishes she had acted more on that intuition moment. But when I think about it now, I'm like something bigger than us was at work right then. Could we have stopped something from happening? No, but there was a connection there somehow, of siblings who are so close.
absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And so
is. That connection and just that intuitive sense of feeling that other person.
mm,
And yeah, you're right. Probably nothing would have changed. Like we could, but I think that's like a beautiful moment because it's sort of like not like a goodbye, but it's like a connection, an expression of love in a way. It feels
right.
to me, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And it gives me, when we talk about it now, that there's something bigger out there,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
adds to my awe and wonder. And we've talked about this, awe and wonder isn't always wonderful, right? It can be
That's
some
right.
hard things like witnessing someone, and take their last breath or something like that. That's
Yeah.
so powerful. And I pack it away kind of like that, like what a powerful moment. It wasn't always positive, but there is positive aspects about it. And thank you, Annie, for
Absolutely.
bringing that into my heart tonight when you were talking about your
Mm,
mom. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Sort of on it like I don't mean to like turn it to like a making light of this connection, but my mom's always a little bit like, I am like a little psychic. It's become sort of a joke where she's like, I have a sixth sense. And so my daughter and I were flying down to Philadelphia on Saturday morning to visit my son. We made like a blitz trip. He's in college down there. And I texted her right when we were getting on the plane and was like, so mom, what's your vibe? Are we gonna be safe?
Oh,
And my daughter was like, Mom, what are we gonna do? If she says no, are we gonna actually not go?
Right, right. Oh my
And
gosh.
then it was like a lot to put on my mom. I was
Mhm.
anyway, she was like, "You'll be fine. I feel it. You're gonna be fine."
Yeah, she was right because
She,
you are.
I know. Right. And like, of course, my husband makes fun of it. He's like, yeah, well, she had a pretty good chance of being right. But I do think, like, I'm thinking of him, like, part of what blocks our experiences to awe and wonder sometimes is like people who like need an explanation for everything. Like, it needs to be logical and has to make sense and we have to understand all of it. There's so much we don't understand. And
mhm.
I think we have to accept that if we're going to see awe and wonder. Like there's so much that we can't explain, and that's part of the beauty.
Mhm.
That is so true. And we can live with a lot of unexplained things, and our openness allows us to live with mystery and uncertainty. And
Mhm.
my God, do we need that in
Yeah.
these times?
Yes,
Yeah,
we do.
it just helps us live with all the inexplicable things. It
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
just gives us a language even for inexplicable things.
Yeah.
But, when we get together and share stories or share our insights, it's just to me, that's the most healing thing of all, is the sharing of these things as a
Absolutely.
group or with each other or on a platform.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and it makes me want to just say, like, Robyn, like to you were so nice about what you said about the opioid project, but like the work you're doing day in and day out, creating these groups for people and creating these moments of connection
Mhm.
is so incredible. Incredible.
Thank you. And I get probably more out of it than the people that come to the groups. It is so healing and so powerful. Um, but I feel energized from all these other things that I do too, that I can bring back to our group. Like having this mechanism now for people to come outside of the group and share it in public. It's
Yeah.
like a brave step for them, or, like we'll be able to invite people to come to the next opioid storytelling project with you, Annie, soon. Like
Yeah.
that's beautiful that we can offer these spaces to people for them to experience their own awe and wonder and storytelling, and so healing in so many different ways. So I'm really thankful that I've been able to be part of both of your lives down the path here in my grief journey.
Mm,
and I think we could talk for hours. And Annie Brewster, I hope you can come back some other time and we can share some more stories.
I would love
Really,
to.
you got us started. This is only the beginning, so just loved hearing what you had to say.
Well,
Um,
thank you. I have such deep respect for both of you, and I'm really honored to have been asked to do it. So thank you.
Thanks.
thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All
And
right. Have a good night, guys.
great. Until next time.
Okay,
All right. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.